guys, welcome back to my podcast. I am pretty excited. I have a couple things that I wanted to talk about today. One being continuing my discussion with Stranger Things season four, or um, I guess you can call, yeah, Stranger Things season four. But we're talking about episode four or chapter four today, titled Dear Billy. And I mentioned this in my last episode last week about how this was probably the best episode of Stranger Things that I feel like I've seen. And I know a lot of people really liked this episode in particular because it's just so, like, there's just so much stuff going on. I mean, the whole season, it was a lot, but this one, for sure, it was just like one thing after another. It was kind of like hard to keep up with everything that was going on. Because everybody in the show was kind of split up in pretty much like three separate places. And then it was really emotional too. So I think people really like this episode because it just kind of tugged on your heartstrings and everybody really felt for Max and everything. So this episode was really, really good, and I'm excited to talk about this one. And then also, I kind of wanted to talk about Jordan Peele's new film called Nope. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about it or maybe seen the trailer or commercials for it. It just recently came out, and I got to see it kind of early. It came out officially on Friday, but I went to go see it Thursday. And yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about that because, you know, if you guys have seen his other films, if you've seen Get Out and if you've seen Us, do you know his films are really layered? I mean, they're all horror films or all like thrillers, but there's always some type of like message to it. So I felt like his film would be a good topic to kind of discuss. And then there was a couple other points that I kind of wanted to make regarding his film as well that I thought was really important to talk about. And I know my podcast pretty much centers around TV, but you know, I'm a fan of film too, so I thought why not? I'll throw it in there. You know, hopefully you guys don't mind me talking about something else a little bit outside of TV. But yeah, let's just get into it. So I'll start off talking about Nope first, and then we'll kind of transition into Stranger Things, episode four. So as I said, I went to go see it Thursday. Um, and I just watched it in 2D, but I've heard that it's so much better to experience it in IMAX. So if anybody's planning on going to see it, try to get tickets in IMAX because I've heard that they filmed the movie with IMAX cameras. So it's kind of like made for IMAX pretty much. I didn't know that prior to going to see it. So I just went to go see it like, you know, in the regular way, but it was still really cool. Like the cinematography was really, really nice. I would argue that this film was probably the most cinematic film that he's came out with so far. It's definitely the type of movie that you want to experience in theaters. I mean, watching it at home and stuff will be cool too, but I think for a first watch, I think it would be pretty cool to go see it in theaters. So I encourage people to go and see it. And funny enough, I'm really not like a fan of the horror genre like that when it comes to movies, I guess. For some weird reason, I've always had this thing where I'll watch horror like TV shows, and I'll even read like horror books or like thrillers and stuff. But when it comes to the movies, I don't know why, but that always like scared me more for some reason. Like growing up, I did not like horror films at all. Like it would really scare me and give me like bad dreams. So I kind of just stayed away from it. And then sometimes I couldn't help but be exposed to it. So then I would end up seeing things that I didn't want to see. So yeah, I've always kind of like stayed away from horror films, but I feel like I'm a little bit more open to it now. It's still not my favorite genre, but I mean, the fact that I went to the theater to go see a horror film, I feel like that's growth for me because I never would have done that like when I was a teenager or anything like that. Like, heck no. I would have been like, no, I'm not going to see that. um, and to be honest, this film wasn't like, it wasn't scary. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was some parts where I was like, kind of going like this, like kind of covering my eyes because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I know, like, you know, when you're in the theater and there's like a loud sound, like I just jump. I can't help it. So I had a couple of those moments where I kind of jumped and I was like, oh shoot, but it wasn't really scary, like probably like what you would think. It was more of a sci-fi thriller type movie. You know, it kind of has to do with like a UFO. Well, I shouldn't say kind of. It does have to do with the UFO. Um, so it's I would definitely say it's more like sci-fi thriller. So if you're into that, then you'll probably enjoy it because this movie was very, I'd say it's very like different than any other movie I've seen, at least probably like within the last decade. And it was like, because I had a couple people I talked to and I said I went to go see it, and they're like, how was it? Did you enjoy it? And I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. And it's really hard to describe. It's one of those movies where you have to go see it for yourself. And like I said, his movies tend to be so layered that it's like you'll just end up talking about it for hours, trying to explain what the movie's about, what happens in it, and what it really means and everything. So I try not to like give away too much because I know um, there's still probably a bunch of people that haven't seen it yet. So I don't want to spoil anything. Um, but there is a UFO in the movie. And that's kind of like the main, what would you call it? Like, I don't want to say the main villain, but that's kind of like the main thing that they discover in the movie. And it kind of takes them on this like, kind of like big adventure and stuff. So it's definitely, you could tell it was made to be like a big, like blockbuster summer type movie. Um, so, like I said, it's definitely something you probably want to enjoy in theaters if you can. But yeah, this movie was so weird. And I don't mean that in a bad way because I've said that about all his films, about Get Out and Us. They're all weird films. But what's cool about it is, it's Jordan Peele film, if that makes sense. I said film. It's a Jordan Peele film when you watch it. And I feel like, um, he's kind of already developed his own style as a filmmaker. And I think, especially now and then going into the future, when you see these movies, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is a Jordan film. Like you could just automatically tell by the style and kind of what the movie is about and all that kind of stuff. Like you'll just know that it's him. And so I think that's cool that he's kind of, I believe this is only his third movie. I don't think he did any other big movies outside of Get Out and Us and then this one. So I'd say that's pretty impressive that he's already kind of developed, like, I guess, a signature style that people are able to recognize now. And I think they'll continue to recognize it the more he makes movies. So yeah, it was definitely weird. But like I said, there's clearly themes of exploitation, kind of talk of Hollywood. And I think the way, um, we as a society, how we're always kind of attention seeking or always looking to kind of like capture something on film, and we're kind of missing out on experiencing things in the moment. We're not really present because everybody's always recording or trying to take pictures or trying to just trying to exploit it. We don't just do that in Hollywood or with celebrities. I think we do that with just people in general. So there was a lot of, you could tell that was kind of like a big theme of that. So that's why I thought that was really cool. And the way he kind of incorporates these themes in such a unique and weird way, and then being able to put it in the horror genre, I think is really cool. And so the one thing that I wanted to talk about with his films is how I really like, I don't know if I'll be able to explain this well, but hopefully you guys will understand what I'm trying to say. So I like the way Jordan, with his films, he's always been able to put Black people in these spaces, or I should say Black actors, in these spaces that we really don't see Black actors being put in like a lot of other movies. And by that, I mean, you don't really see, I'm not going to say like, all of his movies are just 100% completely original, because I'm pretty sure every filmmaker, every artist, every creative person gets inspired by something or someone. So I'm sure there's people that will watch this and probably go, oh, this reminds me of like, some like old movie from like the 70s or the 80s or something like that. But I just feel like he's really unique in the way he's been able to kind of like represent Black people, and like I said, specifically putting them in spaces that we tend to not see them in like big movies like this. I would say TV is much better at that. We've seen like a lot of Black characters in different types of TV shows. There's so many TV shows out, and then including the shows that are like streaming and stuff. There's a lot of different type of Black characters in TV, but I feel like film and like cinema in particular has been kind of missing out on that. And you guys can let me know if you agree with this, but I feel like a lot of the movies, at least in recent years, that have to do with Black people, it always kind of comes down to like one or two things. It's always like slave movies, or it's like a Tyler Perry movie. And I'm not dissing those types of movies, because I think those stories are important to tell as well. Obviously with like, slave movies and stuff like that, those are, that comes down to history. That's a part of American history. It's a part of Black history. So I wouldn't ever say like those types of movies don't need to be made, but it's just like, I think after a while, people kind of get tired. Like we kind of get tired, especially I've heard criticisms from like younger Black people that are kind of just like, why do they keep making movies like this? Like seeing us like in shackles and stuff. And then like you have those movies too, where they've really, again, exploited, like the police brutality that we've seen happening over like, I was gonna say the past few years, but really longer than that. But you know how heavy it's gotten within the last few years. And then they'll make a movie and it'll be like an unarmed Black teen was shot, and now the whole city is rioting, and now they're looting, and then they make a movie about that. And I'm like, okay, that's a little too close to home, first of all, because that stuff is happening literally right now, and it's been happening. And so kind of seeing that reflected in film is almost a bit much sometimes, where I'm just like, I feel like a lot of people just want to watch a film and kind of, escape. It's kind of, I think film and TV and music too are all forms of escapism. So I think people want to go to the movies, or they want to sit down and watch a movie and watch something that's like completely different than what's going on in the world. And so when we see movies like that, and it's always like with Black people, it's just like, okay, like, can we see Black people in a different space than that? And again, I'm not dissing those types of movies, because there are some pretty good movies. I think there was a movie that came out. I don't remember what year that came out. I think it was called The Hate You Give. And that was originally a novel, and they turned it into a film. And that kind of had to do with, like police brutality and everything. That was a good film. So I'm not saying to not make those types of films, but I'm just saying, can we expand a little bit? Can we have Black people in different spaces outside of like slave movies and police brutality and trauma movies? And then you have, like I said, you have like Tyler Perry movies, which are, they're funny, and he's been doing movies for a long time. But again, I think it's kind of starting to get old, and we're kind of want to see something new, or at least I feel like I do. But I've also seen other people like on Twitter and stuff say that too, where they're kind of like, where's the original ideas? Where are the original scripts? Because this stuff that's coming out now is really not original. Again, I know everybody's inspired by something of the past, but it's just kind of like, there's just a lot of remakes coming out. And again, some of those are cool too. Like obviously It was a big, cool remake, and that ended up being like one of my favorite movies, surprisingly. And then I know they like redid Candyman, I think last year. I haven't seen that, but I heard it was pretty good. So remakes aren't always bad, but I just feel like when it's just like a lot of that happening, and there's not really any like, there's really no like original ideas or something that we haven't quite seen yet, it kind of just gets stale. And so with this movie, I feel like it was kind of like a breath of fresh air is what I would say, because again, I really haven't seen a movie like this. And what made it even better was that the two leads are, Black people, Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya. I hope I said his last name right. So Daniel was in Get Out, if you guys didn't know. So he's worked with Jordan before. And then Keke, I think it was nice seeing her, because like a lot of us grew up watching her, and like, she was on Nickelodeon, she was on Disney Channel. I think most people remember her from like Akilah and the Bee and everything. So it was really nice to see her in like a big film like that again. I feel like she hasn't really been on the big screen in a while, and I know she's super talented. And she kind of like, I think her role was kind of, people are calling it like the breakout role. She's like the breakout star now. So I think a lot of people liked her character, because she kind of brought some like comedic relief to the movie. Her and another character. God, I'm blanking on his name right now. I think his name is Brandon in real life, the actor's name, but I forgot what his character's name in the movie. But so yeah, there was definitely like some funny moments too and everything. But I don't know, I just feel like it was a pretty good film, and I recommend people to go see it. And I really just wanted to support Jordan Peele as a Black filmmaker, and then just like, Daniel and Keke being like two Black leads and everything. Like, I want to see them succeed, because they're both talented, and I feel like we need more movies like this. And I know Jordan will continue to make films and everything, but I'm hoping that we'll get other Black filmmakers to kind of, like I said, put Black people in different spaces. It doesn't always have to be like this one box that we have to stay in. And it's weird because I feel like when we do try to come out of these boxes and do something different, then people get upset. And I'm just like, why would you be upset at that? I mean, we know why, but it's like, it's just so weird and it's kind of sad to me. And a good example of that is when they released the casting for, okay, so there's supposed to be a live action movie of the Little Mermaid. I'm not sure when it's coming out. It's been I mean, they talked about it like a while back. I don't think it's coming out until maybe next year or the year after that. I'm not sure. I think it's like in post production right now, but um, they had released who the cast was in the movie. And so Hallie, who is a part of the singing duo Chloe and Hallie, I think most of you guys probably know who that is, or the names hopefully sound familiar. But she's a singer. So she got cast as Ariel, and people were upset about that. And it was just like the responses and then the backlash that she got was just so unnecessary. And like I said, it was just really weird. It was like, Ariel is not black. Ariel doesn't have dreads. Like why would she be Ariel? It doesn't make sense and everything. And it was just like, why can't she be Ariel? And it was like, you guys are really getting mad over a fictional character. Like, just because the animated version of Ariel was white doesn't mean that a live action movie, you can't have a different, like, a different ethnicity or a different race playing the character. Again, this is Ariel's not a real character. I mean, mermaids are not real. So why can't a black girl be a mermaid? And so see things like that kind of just bug me, where I'm just like, why are people upset about that? Like, really? And people were even talking about like her hair, saying like, because she has dreadlocks or her hair isn't red, so that's not going to be right. And I'm like, anyway, if you don't believe me, you can Google it and probably look up like the backlash she received, and just it was crazy. But I remember seeing that on like Twitter and stuff, and I'm sure it was on like Facebook and everything, where people were just like, no, I don't want her to be Ariel, that's not right, or it doesn't make sense and stuff. And it, like I said, stuff like that, where it's just like, come on, you guys, why do we only have to be like in these stereotypical roles? Like, black people they can be mermaids, they can be ballerinas, they can be fairies, we can be anything. Like, the sky's the limit. So I kind of just want to see more of that, I think, in film. That's what I feel like we're missing. But I feel like Jordan is filling that space, with at least within the horror genre. And so that's why I'm really like glad that he's successful, that he's finding so much success, and that he's able to kind of give this platform to these black actors and create these types of movies, because it's like nobody else is doing it, at least not on a huge scale like he is. So hopefully we kind of get to see some more stuff like that in the near future. And then another thing too, like, I know that we always talk about how important it is to have black representation, on the screen and in the media that we consume, which I think is really important, especially for young black people to see that type of stuff so they know that they can do it too. But at the same time, I think it's just as important to have black people working behind the scenes. So like I said, Jordan being a filmmaker, we need more black producers, screenwriters, all these people that, I mean, they make the film. The actors, I'm not saying they're not important, but it's like, without the people behind the scenes, we wouldn't get these films, we wouldn't get these TV shows. They're the ones that make it what it is, like the final version of it, what we see. So I think it's really important to have more of that behind the scenes. And I've had conversations like that with my friends before too, where I'm just like, dang, like, that's why I get really excited and I get really happy when I see black people in media, especially black women too, that are doing that, because I feel like there's not enough of us in there. And sometimes I think certain stories need to be told from our perspective, because it's like, if somebody else does it, it just doesn't come out right. And I've seen before, even with like TV shows, where the writer's room was really white, and there's like no black person in sight, and then they're trying to write for a black character, and it's just coming out really inauthentic, and you could tell, and that's not good TV, that's not good writing. And then the character ends up just being like one dimensional, and you're kind of just like, who wrote this? Like, what is this? So I think that stuff is important too. Like, we need to be behind the scenes as well. We need to be the one like making the stuff as well, not just being on screen, but being behind the scenes. So yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to talk about regarding his film. And like I said, I recommend you guys go see it if you can. Um, I mean, I could kind of do like a whole deep dive into what I interpreted the movie to be about. I mean, I know I mentioned certain themes that I feel like were pretty present in the movie, but I even still feel like there's some things that maybe I haven't connected yet because there's just so many layers to it. So maybe I'll just have to like wait until it comes out on streaming platforms or something and watch it again because I'm pretty sure I'll get something else out of it if I watch it again. It's one of those movies you're gonna have to go back and watch it and then you'll be like, oh, I didn't catch that the first time, or oh, like now I'm seeing why this happened, or I didn't make that connection before. So um, but yeah, it'll be a good movie to talk about like with your friends and your families and like what, I think Jordan Peele makes movies probably with certain themes and messages in mind, but I think he's also the type to, if you go, well, I watched the movie and this was my perspective of it, or this is what I got out of it. Like this is the lesson that I think um or this is the lesson I took away from it. I think he would go, okay, like, that's what you think. I don't think he would say, no, that's not right. I don't know if it's so much a yes and a no thing or a right or wrong thing. I think it's kind of just like however the audience perceives it. Um, but yeah, it's definitely one of those movies where you're like a head scratcher, like where you're thinking afterwards, like, wow, that was like, but this, even though I said it wasn't really like scary, there's definitely some disturbing like scenes in there, and I think like what he really portrays well is like human the way we are as humans and the way we are as a society and kind of how like destructive we can be. um and I think a lot of times with his movies, I feel like the villain or the bad thing is usually us, like as people. And I don't mean that like I know he has a movie called Us, but I'm saying it's usually us that are um the ones that kind of mess things up or make things bad. It's never really like some little creature walking around or like a serial killer. It's always like people and the way that we are as people. And so I think that's kind of what ends up being unsettling about it, because you're like, dang, that's true. Like we really are like messed up sometimes. Like people can be really beautiful and loving, but then we're also like some of the stuff that we do is just like not okay. And I think he kind of like shows us that in a really unique way, basically. Um, so I'm going to take a pause right here. I just wanted to let you guys know that my podcast is sponsored by Streann Media. So if you're wondering how I go live every week on Tuesday at 1 p.m., this is how I do it because I use the Stream Studio software. This is how I'm able to make my podcast. This is how I'm able to do live streaming. If you want to do it, you could do it too. All you have to do is go to studio.streann.com. Streann is spelled with two N's. And they ask you for your email, and then you get a login code and you're in. So there's really no signing up, there's no paying. And you're able to use this like what I'm using for free. And if you want to go live and stream, you could do it through Facebook, you could go live on Twitch, you could even do YouTube. I tend to just stick with Facebook. But you guys can use this for yourself and kind of explore and see what you can come up with, what you think you'd want to do. It doesn't have to be a podcast. You can just do your own you can really do anything that you want to do, that you want to do some live streaming with. So I encourage you guys to check it out because it's really simple and easy to use, and it's fun to do. I think I'm learning a bit here, like with each episode that I do, and I'm thinking all the way back to like when I first started. I really had no idea what I was doing, but thankfully, Stream Media and then the Stream Studio software makes it really easy for pretty much anybody to use. You don't have to be a content creator. You can just be average person like me. And it, like I said, it's really simple. So I encourage you guys to check it out. And then, of course, if you do use it, tag them because they're on social media. And you can also tag me as well because I'd love to see the type of content that you guys are creating so I can support it as well. And then, yeah. So I think I'm going to wrap it up with talking about Nope. Because like I said, I feel like I can kind of go on and on and on. I don't want this whole episode to be about the film, and I don't want to give anything away. But I want to know what you guys thought. If you've seen the movie, what did you think? Maybe comment down below without spoiling anything, because I don't want anybody to get mad and be like, dang, I read a comment and it told me what happened in the movie. So don't say what happens in the movie, but just tell me maybe like what you think the movie was about. What's the lesson you took out of it? How did you perceive certain things in the movie? I mean, and just like what you liked about it the most, or maybe if you disliked it. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Um, so yeah, let's jump into Stranger Things. Um, so I really, man, I really wish I could go back and rewatch, or not even rewatch, but watch episode 4, like experience it for the first time again, because it was really, really good. Like I was like, wow, when I watched it. And like I said, I don't think season 3 was like my season for Stranger Things, but I don't even remember last season there being an episode where I was going like, wow, this was really, really good. Like, but this one for sure, I was like, best episode so far that I've seen from them. Um, and if you go on YouTube and you look up like Stranger Things reactions, I'm that weird girl that likes to look up people reacting to things that I love. Um, you'll see a lot of people that watch this episode, they got like emotional, like they were like teary eyed or like crying about it. So it definitely like it definitely hits you here, basically. Um, so yeah, let me start off with kind of where everybody's at in this episode again, because everybody's spread out throughout the whole season. So it's kind of it can be a little bit hard to keep up with. So you got to make sure you're paying attention when you do watch it. Um, and then let's see. So we kind of have like the California crew is what I call it. That's forming with Mike and Jonathan and Will, and then Argyle kind of joins them. I guess you could say like this episode. And he, Argyle has no idea what's going on. He's just, I mean, he's pretty much high the entire season, but I kind of felt for him because he kind of just got into this not knowing what was going on. But he took it like a champ. He took it like a good sport. So the California crew pretty much finds out that Elle is gone, and that she left with Dr. Owen to go and pretty much work to get her powers back. Um, I think I talked about in episode 3 where they kind of mentioned Project Nina and what that, like the purpose of building that was simply to make Elle stronger, not only to get her powers back, to make her better than ever. And so she agreed to do that with Dr. Owens, and then she left. And so, Will and Mike and all of them are finding out about it. I think they're not Secret Service, I don't think, but they're people that work with Dr. Owens, and they go to the house and they go and tell them basically like, okay, this is where Elle has gone. Well, I don't think they tell them exactly where Elle is, but they say like Elle is gone to go and get her powers back. You just have to trust us. Like this is all for your own good because Hawkins is in trouble and we need her basically. And so, like Mike is freaking out because he's just like, what the heck? Like she's just gone and you're not gonna, that's it. That's all we get. But I think they kind of start to really understand like the severity of it, probably as the episode goes on. So that's kind of where we see them at in the beginning. And then where we left off with Max is really like this whole episode is kind of, I'm not say about her, but it really is about like her trauma and everything that she's kind of internally been going through. We kind of see in the beginning of the season how isolated she's made herself, and she's not really talking to Lucas. She broke up with him. She's not really like hanging out with anybody. She's kind of just walking around with her headphones in her own world. And so, this is obviously something that's been bothering her for a while. And so this episode, I think it kind of, I guess you could say, kind of comes to a head basically. But we find out that Max is targeted by Vecna. We're all like, no, not Max. Are you serious? And so the way they find out is because they start to put together the signs of, okay, because remember last episode, they're going, well, how is Vecna choosing his targets? Because this doesn't make sense. It looks like he's just killing random teenagers. But then in this episode, and then with Max, finding out that she's targeted, they realize like the signs of it is headaches, nosebleeds, and if you have some type of trauma or some type of deep guilt going on internally, then he targets you. And so Max is like, the perfect person for that because, like I said, she still feels so guilty about Billy's death in season 3. And then they kind of shown hints of it earlier in the season that she was having headaches. And I think even when she was talking to the counselor, I think she asked her, like, how are the headaches? And she goes, like, have they gone? I think she's like, oh, have they gone away? And she's just like, yeah. So she lies about that, But so, yeah. So we find out that poor Max is quote unquote next on Vecna's list. And so that kind of kicks everybody in Hawkins, I guess like the Hawkins crew, whatever you want to call it, kind of kicks them into gear to kind of figuring out what they're going to do about it. Like, how are we going to save Max? Because we weren't able to save Fred. We weren't able to save Chrissy. But we got to save Max. We got to find out something that can kind of, combat this. What can we do to go up against Vecna, at least temporarily? So they kind of spring into action when they find out about Max. And then Lucas finally joins the crew, because remember, he was like with the basketball team in the beginning. So they've gone off because they're like, we're looking for Eddie. They're pretty sure they made up their mind that Eddie killed Chrissy and that he's a part of some satanic cult like Hellfire. They think that that's like devilish and everything. And so they already have it in their minds that Eddie is guilty. And so they're going after him. And then they find out that, Dustin is in Hellfire Club. So then they're like, well, hey, let's find him, because he probably knows where Eddie is. And so Lucas pretty much leads them to the wrong way and then ditches them to go and like tell Dustin and everybody else that like, hey, these dudes is coming to look for you, so we got to do something. But by the time he joins, they're just like worried about Max. They're like, yeah, we got bigger problems going on. So as you can see from this episode, Jason and his crew are a problem, pretty much. Like from here on out, they're a problem. And I think what's crazy is that it starts off being like you kind of, I don't know, like you kind of, I guess, sympathize with Jason, or you kind of understand, like, well, like if I had a girlfriend and she was killed and then I didn't really know what was going on, everything, like I would go crazy too. Like I would be trying to find out who did it and probably, I don't know what I would do, but I probably wouldn't be okay. So you kind of feel for him in the beginning, but then he just starts doing too much. And it's just like, dude, like you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what you're up against. And yet you're trying to be this leader, and it's just too much. So he ends up just being a problem. That's just what I'm going to say for now in this episode and pretty much the rest of the season. So you have that. But I'm glad that Lucas like split off from them, because I was like, you don't need to be with them no more, because they're too busy trying to be vigilantes. And it's like, no, you're just going to get yourself killed doing that. And so, like I mentioned in the beginning, the episode is titled Dear Billy. And the reason why it's titled that is because in the episode, once Max finds out that she's next, she's, possibly going to be the next victim, she starts writing letters to the people that she loves. And she kind of hands them out to like, Dustin and Lucas and everything. And she says, don't read it yet. This is just for like, if something happens to me. And then we see her writing a letter to Billy. And then later in the episode, she visits his grave and she reads the letter to him, and it's this really emotional scene. And that's kind of like where we see kind of the big, or I shouldn't say the big showdown, but like the first showdown with Vecna. And I'll go back to that in a little bit, but that's why this episode's titled Dear Billy. And it's pretty, it's just really like kind of the first time I think as an audience we see how much Max is really struggling. Again, there's signs of it in the earlier episodes, but then we really see, like we hear it from her own mouth, her talking about how guilty she feels and why, like how she's saying, I didn't even do anything to help you to stop what happened. So it's like, I think it's like a mix of survivor's guilt and then also just trauma, like going through all of that and losing your brother, and she saw it happen. Like that's a lot for a 15-year-old to go through. And then the fact that she can't really tell anybody about it. I mean, she can't tell her mom that that's what happened, because I mean, they would think she's crazy. The only people she could really talk to is her friends, and then she's isolated them, in the beginning. So she's pretty much on her own, and she's kind of just been having to deal with this. So yeah, it's really emotional. And then another cool thing in this episode, because so much happens in this episode, is Nancy and Robin team up. And I feel like we haven't really seen them team up before until now. So that was kind of like an interesting dynamic, because Nancy is so much more serious. And Robin is very like, super talkative and kind of spazzy, like, and she doesn't really know like when to shut up sometimes. And you could tell Nancy's kind of like annoyed with her a little bit, but they make a good team though. So what they do is they go and visit Victor Creel, who was mentioned in the last episode as being, this crazy guy that killed his family a long time ago in the 50s, and then he got locked up. So we start to learn more about him and his story, and there's some cool flashback scenes as to what happened. And so pretty much we learn that like Victor Krill did not kill his family, and he's basically just saying like, this was a demon that came in and killed my family. I didn't do it. This demon did. And so, after they go and visit him, they kind of put two and two together that like this was definitely Vecna. The other big, I guess, reveal or thing that they learned is that music is the key to kind of, I guess, saving people. Like when Vecna has you in his grip and you can't, you're in your mind when he's kind of coming after you. And that's why I said it's kind of like a Freddy Krueger thing, because you're kind of like under his spell. So even though all this stuff is happening mentally, it's like whatever he does is going to affect you in the real world. So when he does get Max, they learn pretty much at the very last minute that like, we need to play music that she loves, just to kind of get her out of her like subconscious, I guess. And so they end up doing that. I said I was going to talk about it later, but this scene was just so good. Let me just talk about it now. So they end up getting that information, and they tell, the rest of the Hawkins crew, because when she goes to the grave to visit Billy, that's when it happens. So she reads out this letter about how sorry she is that he died, and that, she basically just saying she wishes things could have been different and how horrible things are now that he's gone. And then, of course, Vecna shows up, like, of course, at that time when it's supposed to be sentimental, and she's, like, pouring her heart out, and then he comes and ruins it. I should have known that was going to happen. And then, he kind of takes over her mind, and he's coming to get her. And what happens, as you guys remember, I think Chrissy dies in the first episode. Like, same thing with Chrissy and Fred. Like, when he gets you, you start floating. And so there's a scene, or I shouldn't say there's a scene, there's the scene where she starts floating, and it kind of looks like, we're just like, is he really going to get her? Like, what are y'all doing, Stranger Things? Like, oh, you're not about to get my girl Max. Like, what are you doing? Because it looks like they're not really going to be able to do anything at that point. I think that was the whole point, to kind of keep us on edge and everything. But she starts floating, and when they finally have the music playing, they start playing Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. And if you guys have, I guess, been following Stranger Things, or if you've kind of been watching it, then you know that song, that 80s song, kind of became a big theme for this season. And it became such a big theme for the show that the actual song ended up being like on top of the charts for streaming, which is crazy because this song came out in the 80s. I don't remember exactly what year, but Kate Bush is making a killing off of this song now because Stranger Things is using it. And then everybody that watches Stranger Things went to go listen to it. So now it's like, it came like number 1, number 2 on the charts or something. And everybody was like downloading it and streaming it. And then I think Netflix or Stranger Things even did like a little remix of the song. And they infused like the Kate Bush song with the Stranger Things theme. And that plays in the last episode of the season. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, that song has been making a killing. And I think Kate Bush, if I'm not mistaken, I think she has the rights to that song. So she has to be making a ton of money off of that. So good for her. But yeah, so they play that song for Max, and it kind of, I guess it's kind of works as like a distraction basically, because then she's able to see that like her friends are trying to save her. And she ends up pretty much like decking Vecna. I shouldn't say decking, but what she does is she grabs like a piece of his neck, and she, kind of like cuts him, or I don't know if she like actually takes a chunk of his neck out. That sounds gross, but she gets him good enough to make him drop her, and she starts running towards her friends. And as she's running, that song is playing. So Running Up That Hill, and then she's running towards like this opening of where her friends are trying to save her. And that whole sequence was just shot really, really cool, and just like, it's just, like I said, just really emotional. And you're just like, oh, like on the edge of my seat. I was like, if they make Max die, like, I'm done. I'm not watching anymore. Do not do this to her. So it's like, there's like moments where you're going, are they really going to do this? Like, is she really going to be saved? And then you're going, no, she has to be saved. Like, no way. And then you kind of like are going, at least I know I was, a lot of people were kind of going back and forth. Like, is this really going to happen? Like, what are they doing? Like, what the heck is going on? Um, but spoiler alert, she does make it out. And pretty much like at the very last moment. And that's the last scene in this episode. And again, it was shot really beautifully because they're all in the grave. And Lucas, when she falls down, Lucas is like holding her and they're like crying because they're just like, I thought you were a goner. Like, girl, we thought you was gone. We thought Vecna got you. And she's just like saying, I'm still here. I'm still here. And he's holding her and they're all kind of like surrounding her. And the shot is like, the background is like a sunset and they're in the graveyard. And it's just really nice. Like that whole sequence was just like A plus plus. So I would just even say specifically for that scene, that's why it was one of the best episodes I've ever seen. And then another really cool shot in this episode is the big shootout scene. So once Mike and Will, I'll just say the California crew instead of trying to name everybody. Once the California crew learns that Elle has gone off to get her powers back, they're pretty much like, yeah, we got to go and get her. We got to go save her, basically. And they start packing up and everything. And what they do is, because when those people come, I would just call them Dr. Owens people, come to tell them that they have like two, they're not cops, kind of like security guards, or I don't know what you'd call it, but they're, they work for like Owens and all them stuff like that. So they're on L's side and everything, but they go to kind of like chaperone them to make sure that they don't leave and they don't do something stupid. So the way they're able to get out of the house is Jonathan calls Argyle, because Argyle works for that pizza place. And so they're just like, hey, we're going to order pizza. And knowing that he's going to come, and then they'll be able to like sneak out and go. But what ends up happening is, what ends up happening is they call for Argyle. So he's on his way and the doorbell rings and they're like, oh, there's the pizza. And one of the, again, I don't know their names, but the guards, one of the guards opens the door and some dude just starts shooting. And it becomes this whole like one take shootout scene. And when I say one take, it's like everything is just moving all at once. There's no scenes that are cut. It's just all in one take. So that was really impressive that they did it like that, because I'm pretty sure that was hard for them as actors to do that, because everything has to be right. And if it's not, then you'd have to go back and reshoot the whole thing. But it's all in one take. So the guy opens the door and he starts shooting, and it's like all these military people, and it's the people that are after Hell. So it's the people that, again, don't remember his name, but the general, that black guy in the show, we don't like him. He thinks Elle is like this killer, this big killer and everything. I mean, granted, she has killed people, but she's not the one going around killing, he doesn't know about Vecna, basically. So he's been after her for a while. And so they find out that that she lives in California now. And so they go to the house, and that's who's shooting them out and everything. So they're just trying to get out of there. And it's just crazy. And even the way the camera is moving is insane. Like, and I don't know why, but there's a moment where I think it's the moment where they like run out of the room or something, and they're all like, it's like Jonathan, Mike, and Will, and then the guard, they're all like lined behind the wall because they're trying to, avoid being shot. And poor Will is like, I mean, they're all like screaming and like obviously scared, but poor Will literally looks like he's about to poop his pants. And I just laughed out loud at that specific moment that they show his face. Please tell me I'm not the only one. I'm like spitting because I'm laughing. Please tell me I'm not the only one that laughed at that. Like, and it's not funny because obviously, like, I didn't want them to get shot or anything. And I don't know, if that was me, I'd be so scared. But I don't know. He looks so miserable. And I'm like, poor Will. Like, dang, this boy done been through enough. And now he's in a freaking shootout, But I don't know. It was just a scene where he just looks so distraught. But yeah, that scene was crazy. And so they do make it out alive. But one of the guards, actually both of them get shot. But one of the guards, he's shot, but then they're able to take him to the van. So when Argyle pulls up, they like jump in the van. They're like, go, go, go. And that's why I was saying, like, Argyle has no idea what's going on. He's just coming to deliver pizza. And now he's in this like big chase that he didn't sign up for. So pretty much from then on, like for the rest of the season, they're in this van. driving like across the country to go and find Elle and try to save her. And so the guy, unfortunately, the guard, he ends up, the one that got shot, well, they both got shot, but the one that they tried to save, he ends up dying in the car. But before he dies, he tells them about Nina. And so they kind of have an idea, I guess, a little bit about, kind of like maybe where Elle could be, but it kind of takes a while for them to figure it out, because all he just says is like, I think he says call Nina or go to Nina or something. And they're trying to write down the number before he dies. And of course he ends up dying before he says it, but he gives them a pin. And so I'll tell you a little bit, I guess, is it next episode maybe, what they find about, there's something with that pin that he gave them that they don't realize until the next episode. I think it's in the next episode. And again, it kind of takes a while for them to put the pieces together. But all they know is that there's something or someone called Nina, and it has something to do with Elle. And so, yeah. So from then on, they're pretty much on the road the whole season, and it's just kind of crazy. That's what it's kind of hard to keep up with, because you have the California crew, you have the Hawkins crew, and then you have Hopper in Russia, and then you have, I think Joyce and Murray, they're not in Russia yet, but they go to Alaska to meet up with Yuri. And Yuri is like the middleman between, Enzo and Hopper. He's the one that's supposed to be like flying Hopper out. Like once Hopper escapes, he promised Enzo, the guard, that he would fly him back to America. As long as they have this exchange going, then, they had a deal. So, what ends up happening there, as you can guess, Yuri ends up being a fake, and he pretty much sells everybody out for money. So not only does he tell on Hopper, because Hopper escapes, he gets out, but then they find him because he's a snitch, basically. So he snitches on Hopper, he snitches on Enzo, the prison guard. So now he's going to be locked up with Hopper. And then he doesn't snitch on them, but then he drugs Joyce and Murray too. And it's all for money. It all comes back for money. So I think it was funny, because when you first get introduced to him as a character, you're like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, he's funny, or he's, like he's weird, but he's like funny and everything. But then when he does that, people are like, oh no, I don't like him no more. They're like, no, you a snitch. We don't like you no more. So yeah, they got fooled by Yuri. And I kind of felt like when I was watching it that something was going to go wrong. I was like, it's just too good to be true for Hopper to be able to escape. And then, they meet up with, he thought, I don't know if he was going to meet up with Yuri, but basically like Yuri was going to fly him back to America. And I was just like, this is just too good to be true. Like, I should have known something was going to happen. But the way all of this happened in this episode, the way everything just like fell apart, like the whole plan was crazy. And again, just really good TV, just a really good episode all around. So, if you haven't seen this episode yet, just wait till you get to episode 4. It's going to be really, really good. And again, as always, let me know what you thought about it, what your favorite scene was, like what you were thinking in the moment as you watched it. Did you kind of know that things were going to go as planned, or did you have hope that Hopper was actually going to be able to escape this time? And then you have to think too, this is only episode 4. So like, there was still other episodes. So it's like, if he escapes and he makes it back to America, like, it just would have been too good to be true. So I kind of knew that like something was going to happen, but I didn't quite know that he was going to snitch on everybody like that. So that was kind of unexpected. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. I thought this episode was really wonderfully done. So kudos to everybody that's a part of Stranger Things. And I don't remember who the director is for this episode, or who. I think it's a guy called, I think his name is like Sean Levy. Or Sean Levy, or I think it's Sean, something like that. I think he might have directed the episode, or he was, if he wasn't the director, then he definitely was part of, I know he's talked about how they made that whole like one take scene, how they were able to do that. And I think he helped coordinate that. So shout out to him and everybody else that was a part of the episode, because they did a really good job. And shout out to Sadie Sink, who plays Max, because she delivered such a good performance. Like I said, I think she was really the star of this episode in particular, but also she really shined this whole season. Just shows how good of an actress she is, and just the depth she's been able to play as Max, because we didn't really get to see Max like this in the previous season. So She's done a really, really wonderful job playing Max this season because it was a lot of emotional stuff that went on, not just this episode, even just like going forward with her. Really, just from the very beginning, like she was just struggling this whole season, so she played it really, really well. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Um, and just to remind you guys, my podcast is sponsored by Streann Media, and I use the Streann Studio software to go live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. So check out their socials, check out the Streann Studio software so you can use it for yourself. And like I always say, it's very simple and easy to use. And honestly, if you need help, if you really want to try and be like, I really don't know what I'm doing, you can reach out to me and I'll tell you how I use it and what I do. There's probably some features in here that I haven't quite used yet. And I always say I want to maybe try something a little different, which I have a little bit, but there's still some other things I haven't quite utilized yet. So, but yeah, I could tell you how I do it if you want to use it. And as always, make sure that you tag Streann Media, and you could tag me as well if you use their Streann Studio software, just so we know that you're using it and that you heard about it from me. That would be very appreciative if you did that. And yeah, next week we're going to be talking about Stranger Things for episode 5. I don't remember what episode 5 is titled, so I'll have to talk about it next week. But yeah, we're continuing the Stranger Things discussion. I'm not sure if I'll be talking about something else. Maybe if you guys want me to continue my discussion about Nope in next week's episode, let me know. Because like I said, I could kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive into what that movie like means and why he made it and everything. And I'm one of those people that, like, if I watch a movie or a TV show or something that I really like or something that really intrigues me, I'll go on YouTube and just type up like like I'll look up interviews and see the people that made it and the people that work behind the scenes. I like to hear them talk about it, to hear about the process and what really went into it. So I've watched some interviews of like Jordan Peele talking about the film and everything, and then like the cast doing interviews and everything like that, like the whole press junket thing that they do. So if you want me to continue talking about Nope, just let me know in the comments. I'll do that for sure. But like I said, I'll definitely be continuing Stranger Things, and kind of give me some TV show recommendations that you guys want me to talk about after I finish talking about Stranger Things, because once I get done with that, I can't really go back to Barry all the way because Barry is not coming back for quite a while. So that's going to be put on hold. So yeah, so let me know what other TV shows you want me to talk about. So I'll kind of have an idea of what I'll be going into after Stranger Things. And then yeah, I will see you guys next Tuesday. As always, if you can't make my lives, just know that I always upload same day. So, I upload my podcast episodes to YouTube. They're uploaded to Anchor and Spotify as well. So you can catch it there if you're not able to, listen to me live. And then you can always also go back to my Facebook page because I have all my podcast episodes on my page as well. So you have access to it pretty much in multiple different places. And yeah, if you want to talk to me on Twitter, hit me up because that's where I'm usually at, talking about TV shows or characters or movies or anything like that. My @ is Prima Donna Girls, and girls is spelled with a U, so GURLS. I know it's a long username, but that's where I'm at on Twitter. So I will see you guys next week, and this was really fun to talk about. Like I said, give me some more ideas of what you think you would like to hear me discuss. And if you want to come on my podcast show and talk to me, and talk to my audience about Nope or Stranger Things or anything like that, just let me know, and so we can work something out. And I will see you guys next weekend. Bye-bye now.